Hello, good morning, and welcome to Smart Men's Business. I'm Anju Ubariji, and definitely the 1st of April. Just welcoming you back from that Easter that was really happening for those that took time to celebrate. But of course, away from that, heading into the further discussions in relation to business, still to remind you that regional integration just all the way through. Part of the key initiatives to involve industrialization and encourage industrialization of farms. That is, and remember the statistics which we look to for you. East Africa seems to be that really that is followed by Europe coming into the picture. $1 billion worth of the exports, and East Africa having a share of about our but also at the same time industries within the country, and that a growth limited local trees, local companies of Uganda have alternatives, and their life is definitely of a region.
Yes, is yeah. Today is the 1st of April. Happy New Month to everyone. In the whole morning, not usual routine for them on a Monday.
Exactly.
But talking about integration, African integration, talking about trade, inter-African, intra-trade.
Yeah.
You know, last year actually, beginning of this year, Kenya reported growth in exports within the East African market. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's actually exported more in Africa.
In Africa.
Compared to the previous years.
Yes.
So that is what we call for every because now he is the one. Ruto is the one who actually initiated it. This thing of African trade, inter-Africa integration. You know, he was pushing it the whole of last year, and probably one way or the other it worked out for them.
It worked out for them.
Yeah. So away from having other markets, you know, in other continents, we can actually do trade within ourselves. You know, they talked about having a currency or one currency
for East Africa.
Yeah, for East Africa and also Africa as a whole. You know, to ease up trade. Yeah, because it's quite difficult. You know, converting from dollars to shillings. Then you know, the different currencies, our currencies differ in value. So it's kind of difficult. So if at all we could do the same as Kenya did, I believe we could have much more than maybe. The only thing I know we would want from other continents, maybe talk about Asia, China, I think it would be in terms of technology. But in terms of food production, we are really good to go. Good to go, yes. If we could only start within ourselves as East Africa, then it grows to the rest of Africa. I believe there is capability.
Yeah, that's pretty positive. That's, of course, talking about any growth and development that happens, it all starts within yourselves, the domestic, the domestic citizens, before you think about, you know, because if you trade amongst the people, you are assured of the market that is available, because you're not, because when you talk about export before satisfying the domestic market, it's a little bit tricky, because you don't know how the other people are going to respond, how the global market is going to respond. But once you have, the domestic market with you, because why am I saying this is that when you have the support from the local citizens, that means you're going to make more money. You're going to make a lot of profit and revenue, and with that profit, you will be able to improve on the quality of your product to export it to other countries. Because the global market responds with quality. What quality do you have in line? How can you be outstanding as as an entrepreneur and all this? So that's why we talk about the regional integration, because even when you take a look at Uganda, when I was starting, when I mentioned that Uganda traded more, most of its exports are from the members within the COMESA, and we see part of the COMESA members include the East African nation members. So East Africa was part of those countries that imported most of Uganda's commodities. So Uganda exported more to that. So I think this really clearly shows us where we should put our focus on, because we know we are on two markets where we are not so much with the tariffs, we are not put in too much restrictions. Of course, it doesn't mean that within the East African nations it's perfect, but at least if we have the majority, the popular vote, the majority vote in terms of trade, I think that's the way to go.
Yeah, I believe that's the way to go, but I think the thing that we still do have is lack of trust in quality.
Lack of trust in quality.
Yeah, in the quality of products that we've been producing over time. Now, if you can look at an instance where Kenya actually had to, send back our maize, due to the aflatoxins that were, found in there. Yeah. So you can imagine the kind of rumor it spread all over Africa, that at one point we can't rely on Uganda because their maize has aflatoxins. So we still have that issue. If with the pesticides and all that, want to go organic, because now most nations are now going organic. Natural things, no pesticides, no fertilizers could be, but not so much. Because the more we consume these on daily, the more we expose ourselves to diseases,
Of course,
like cancer.
And those diseases which lead to healthcare costs.
Yeah. And that is why when you go to the to other continents, maybe in North America or maybe America itself, the vegetables are quite expensive because they are mostly organic. Compared to us, where now the GMOs are into place, the seedlings, I think a crop that would go for a year to grow grows within 6 months. So it's
actually, I feel like that's really key when you mention that, because the question is, imagine you are importing a certain commodity from a certain country. And less do you know that the more you import that commodity, the more the health burden increases in your country. I think that country that is exporting that commodity should check themselves. I take, for instance, if you mention like the recent time when Kenyan Pampers were banned from the United States of America, it's talking about some of the particles, the material they make in them.
The genes, baby genes.
Exactly, which is hurting to their health. So I think those are some of the key challenges we've been experiencing. I'm talking about the East African region, talking about as Uganda, when it comes to, because there was a time when we had issues with we exporting fish to Europe about poisoning, when some people used to use poisoning to fish, and I mean it largely got us really not a good name. So those are aspects really to look into. But why does that come along is because you're trying to venture into a market you're not yet ready to, and probably find that you're looking for alternative methods to ensure that you increase output of that product. But little do you know that the shortcuts you're trying to make have health implications to the market that you're trying to export to. So that's why if we can focus on the domestic market, which may not really be as much big, because there is having market, but you can't satisfy that market. And that's where the evil practices of trade come in, because you're trying to satisfy the entire market. When we consider that, we're on our time, we're not on pressure. That means we shall give the domestic market the best. When they give us the money, we invest it back in the farms, then we can export it to the Western world. I think that's how really it works. I benchmark this a lot from China, the way they worked on having that big population, cheap labor, and all that. And in that way, because I normally say that one of the ways of some businesses maximizing profit is actually may not be necessarily in terms of increasing output, but it may be in line with cutting cost. When you cut cost, then the profit margin also increases. So this was the case with China. Cheap labor. I mean, so they focus more on the domestic market. The markets grew, whereby it started to attract industries, people from America, Europe, to come to establish industries in China, because they knew in China you have cheap labor, there is an available market, and in all that perspective. So this does not only just work out for us, but once we have the solidarity, the Buy Uganda, Build Uganda initiative, once we have it moving and we are supporting it, that means investors from countries like Algeria would love to come in our country and invest, because they know Ugandans really support their commodities. Investors from Europe, from other countries, which adds us, an added advantage of trade, according to my observation.
I think that is true, actually. But the other issue I see with Buy Uganda, Build Uganda, I think the problem where it all starts from is the issue with material. The raw materials that are needed are quite expensive. So by the time a person produces the end product, it's quite expensive. It's quite expensive. They purchase the raw materials at a probably higher cost, and they want to get profits out of it. So if a person probably gets a stage and they're doing earrings, they're going to get the hooks, they're going to get the small little items that they're going to improvise and exchange itself for. So an earring that we are used to, at 10,000 for Uganda, if you've taken keen interest, things go for, like, if you've gone to Art World here near, here near, things are quite expensive. But Tenje is at 35,000, 45,000. An earring at 25,000, you're like, I mean, alternative people have like, what? Let me just go to downtown and just buy the one at 10,000 is what I can actually afford. So we want to be at what makes what they have cheaper than our company.
Than ours,
Yes. If we could figure that out, at least we could know how to go about it.
So what makes their commodities cheaper and ours a bit expensive? In terms of that is quite a key, by the way, quite a key question. If we can really break down that, most especially coming down to the private players, and this doesn't rule out the policymakers, the government, to see that they can create an atmosphere for these domestic manufacturers to thrive. Of course, the discussion today is, of course, in line with regional integration and its contribution, most especially when it comes to industrialization in our country, in Uganda. What degree can that be, most especially when it comes to providing employment alternatives and product alternatives to the member states on that line. Well, that is it for now. Let's take a look at what's happening into the press. Well, as we proceed today, I'm going to be viewing the electronic way. I'm embracing the digital space. I did manage to get a hard copy of the press. But anyway, seeing a little here, traffic officers tipped on motor insurance. Yes, so I will see how that is quite important. Of course, in Uganda, this falls under the third-party insurance offering protection against damages that is to third party by the insured vehicle, and it definitely covers physical injuries, damages to the vehicle, and damage to the property, and at the same time a death inclusive. Now, the third party insurance does not provide any compensation if the accident was caused due to drunken driving, reckless of any sort, or sheer irresponsibility. Now, of course, in a move to ensure prompt, fair, and deserved compensation, that deserved compensation happens in an event of an accident, a proper assessment of the situation is of utmost importance. Now, in this aspect, by law, the role of the Uganda Police Traffic Department, particularly that is in terms of the quality of the report pertaining to the accident, largely determines whether the compensation clause gets triggered or ignored. So that is part of the discussions within that, as traffic officers are tipped on motor insurance?
Well, of course, over the weekend, looking on Saturday, there was a China-Uganda joint, Ghana-China talk, while they were trying to, they were in joint efforts to pursue mutual development. And of course, China here continues to play a leading role in investing in Uganda, especially in areas looking at agro-industry, manufacturing, oil and gas, and industrial parks, among others. So that is what happened over the weekend. Well, of course, looking at how China has been supporting Ghana's development in various fields, including trade, health, agriculture, and very many others over the decades, So this partnership, looking at the frameworks regarding the Belt and Road Initiative,
Belt and Road Initiative.
Now, under the Belt and Road Initiative, China financed and constructed 2 hydropower plants, Karuma hydropower plant and the Simba power plant station that are critical to addressing Uganda's increasing energy needs and facilitating its industrialization. And of course, when we talk about energy, electricity, before we start actually exporting to other nations, expanding, we should actually consider. By the time we start exporting some things like energy, electricity, everyone should be connected. That's what I want.
Absolutely.
That's what I would feel. Maybe
The
unless it's a
domestic
choice.
people should be really put into consideration, because once you rule them out, because we know, like later on we shall see that Uganda loses about $400 million in terms of capital that is flown out of this country, and this is paid in terms of dividends. All that. So if you don't consider the foreigners, if they're given the much more consideration, they take the money back. So why are they taking the money back, and why are they making this much money? Because they have access at some of these resources we are exporting out there, and we are leaving out the domestic players, which probably the electricity could be like an input needed to quicken the production process, but they can't access it. And if they can access it, it's expensive for them, but we are exporting it out there. So how do we expect them to be competitive with these people? So I think that is very right. Now, of course, taking a look here at the Daily Monitor, funding drought devastates African startups, which leaves a trail of job losses. Of course, we're discussing matters to do with the funding gap for startups, most especially in Africa. Now, of course, this is what you should know, that across Africa, thousands of people are estimated to have lost their jobs in the wave of startup closures and the scale backs last year, and mostly in the top 4 startup markets on the continent. Of course, taking a look at Nigeria, Kenya, Egypt, and of course, South Africa. Now, a record 20 startups closed down across Africa, that is last year, and many more scaled back operations, that is due to a general funding drought that impacted definitely many countries on the continent, leaving the trail of job losses for these ones. Now, further, the report still puts out there that last year, the amount of funding raised by startups on the continent declined by 31%. That is to about 4.5%. That is to about $4.5 billion from $6.5 billion raised in 2022, which definitely significantly impacted cash flows for budding companies. Now, according to the African Venture Capital Association, a number of startups which had previously raised a significant amount of funding from investors last year closed down after failing to raise follow-up funding rounds. I'm talking about this perspective that you've been injected money into, but you failed to make money, you failed to make a profit. So what could be the issue why these startups are not even making money? I think this could be part of the discussions that are put across in the various business conferences that are held in different countries, even Uganda inclusive. Why is the I mean, they get this venture capital. I mean, they're raising $4.5 billion across the continent. That's a lot of money. Well, it's more like this is risk capital, of course, risk capital, but the investors don't really get it back in the first place, and these startups don't get a chance to make a profit and reinvest it back in their investment.
Well, of course, here in the new vision, as the president of Uganda, giving his Easter message, emphasized on unity and anti-corruption efforts. Yeah. So, of course, he was, and actually, Museveni underscored the government's commitment to combating the vice while urging citizens to hold their elected leaders accountable through existing local governance structures, talking about corruption, different scandals that have been happening in Uganda over the years, and just even recently, I feel there is need. Fine, there is this thing of we talk about it, but then nothing is being done. I mean, nobody whatsoever, nobody. You may speak out. The moment you speak out, trust me, people, you will just disappear in no time. You will just disappear So we have that. We have that timidness, we have that fear of, once I speak out, speak up, I'm going to be in for it. The same applies to everything. For Uganda, it's everything. Even if you are seated on a motorcycle or maybe in an Uber and they're driving you recklessly, you would just keep quiet. I mean, why are you risking your life? Speak up. Speak up where need to be, so that, because at the end of the day, you may not speak up. It's going to happen to you.
It's going to happen to you.
Yeah, if you are a leader, if you become a leader in the future. So, please, let's find means of fighting this vice like they say.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right, now, as we wind this up, I'll take a look at the report here where Katikkiro of Uganda calls for accountability for, that is, on size and the cost of Ugandan government in that line, and he's actually right. Of course, he said Buganda Kingdom, Katikkiro, that is Mr. Charles Peter Maiga, has tasked the citizens of Uganda to focus more on demanding answers for some of the pressing challenges of the most, that is, including a bloated political leadership and leadership class that takes a big percentage of the taxes of this country. Of course, while addressing the congregation during the Easter Sunday service at Our Lady Fatima Cathedral, that is Kasana Luwero Diocese in Luwero District, the Katikkiro castigated voters for wasting a lot of time, that is on useless political demands instead of pressing challenges that could be draining of the country's resources. Yeah, so it's quite a huge report here that he mentioned, lots of stuff. I cannot really mention it, but that's what he's trying to tell the young people, to get off the different political demands and demand for accountability. Yeah, for that, maybe just here, Archbishop Semogere decrees growing intolerance. Of course, the matters to do with land grabbing, most especially in the rural and upcountry areas. It's quite really so common. Yes, in line with that. And of course, still Archbishop Kazimba says here, secure your place in heaven, known to earthly possessions. Don't be greedy and, you lose it out all. Well, we'll take a break for now. And of course, we'll return shortly with the Caribou, East Africa and the international updates. Stick around.